post former USA gymnastics Dr. Larry Nassar is serving long sentences for decades of UL abuse of young gymnasts. But how did the sports doctor get away with his crimes for so long? March 2018, Dwight Adams/Indy star 2 Michigan State University employees who allegedly were aware of complaints years ago against Larry Nassar are still on the job, raising continuing questions about the university's response to abuses by the former Olympic doctor that go back decades. The two athletic trainers were informed nearly 20 years ago of incidents in which Nassar made athletes uncomfortable during appointments, according to two former athletes. It's unclear what the trainers did with the information, but Nassar wasn't stopped. One of the trainers, Destiny Teachner-Hawk, is named as a defendant in a federal lawsuit, which claims she and others at MSU knew or should have known of Nassar's abuse yet failed to take corrective action. An MSU spokeswoman told the Free Press in mid-March the trainers have never been suspended and are still working. More, former MSU students say William Strampel had a history of lewd behavior. Larry Nassar challenge, Michigan State will deal with for a long-time employees who were informed about abuse and failed to act should be fired, said John Manley, an attorney who represents dozens of women suing the university and its officials. If they reported, hundreds of girls would have been spared, he said. They obviously didn't. The trainers are among several MSU officials whose texts and emails were requested by the Michigan Attorney General's office for its investigation into the university's handling of the Nassar matter. The scope of the Attorney General's probe is unclear, but it has already ensnared William Strampel, Nassar's former boss and former dean of the MSU College of Osteopathic Medicine. Strampel, who was arraigned on criminal charges Tuesday, is accused of brutally harassing and groping female students and also failing to supervise Nassar. Interim MSU President John Angler, in a statement when charges were announced against Strampel, said Strampel's actions didn't align with the university's values and the former dean's lack of attention to the conduct of Nassar was unacceptable. While the crimes of one doctor and the misconduct of his dean do not represent our university, they do demand the scrutiny of everyone in order to assure individuals like these can never be in a position again to harm others, his statement said. More, William Strampel was the fox guarding Larry Nassar's henhouse at MSU. Prosecutors say questions from the Free Press to the university about why employees who were aware of Nassar complaints were still working were not directly answered. Former athletes have said athletic trainers Teachner-Hawk and Liana hadn't received complaints about Nassar in the early 2000s. The trainers, according to athletes and investigative records, described Nassar's treatments as medically appropriate, using a model of a pelvis to explain the procedure, and conveyed to young women what pursuing complaints against Nassar would involve. Teachner-Hawk was twice interviewed as part of investigations into Nassar, once in 2014 by an MSU official and, last year, by police. Both times, she reported that no athlete had ever expressed discomfort with Nassar. Teachner-Hawk did, however, say under questioning in the police interview that she had heard athletes discuss Nassar doing procedures near their vaginas, and she would use a pelvis model to redirect their understanding of the treatment. According to a police report obtained by the Lansing State Journal, Emily Garrett, a university spokeswoman, told the Free Press that MSU does not discuss personnel actions, but said action would be taken if an employee violated MSU policies and if the university discovered at any time that any employee was involved in criminal activity, it would be immediately reported to the police. Teachner-Hawk and Ada did not return calls seeking comment. Garrett said they could not be made available because of ongoing civil litigation, but she confirmed in mid-March that both trainers still work at the university. Garrett would not say whether either had been investigated by the university for wrongdoing, but confirmed neither had faced suspensions. Scott Schneider, an attorney with Fisher Phillips, a national labor and employment law firm, said there could be multiple reasons why the university hasn't taken action. MSU may have investigated and determined employees did nothing wrong, or there could be a concern that firing employees for wrongdoing could be an acknowledgement of the institution's failures, said Schneider, who said he specializes in Title IX issues and institutional response to UL misconduct. I think Michigan State's in the midst of kind of a reckoning here, where they may have to, at some point, acknowledge, yes, there is wrongdoing here, he said, adding that it will have an impact on the civil lawsuit sought by the book, At first, almost immediately after starting her softball career at MSU in the late 1990s, Tiffany Lopez, then known as Tiffany Thomas, started experiencing lower back pain. Her trainer at the time directed her to see Nassar. The initial visit, Lopez said in an interview, was by the book. Nassar walked her through the stretches he was doing and did not perform any invasive procedures. He left a good impression. Lopez started seeing Nassar regularly, but the appointments quickly took a turn. Nassar would have her undressed from the waist down and massage her pelvic area, occasionally penetrating her with his hand. Eventually, she said, the penetration became routine. Along the way, Lopez said, she informed 3 trainers about how uncomfortable she was with the treatments. Tiffany Thomas Lopez complained to MSU trainers Destiny Teachner-Hawk and Leanna Haddon about her treatments from Larry Nassar. Photo, Matthew Day Smith / Lansing State. Right out of the gate, I said, this is so weird, like this man is not using gloves, like is that weird or is it just me? Lopez said. I was always questioning. Lopez's first trainer, who she said she talked to about Nassar, no longer works for MSU, is not named in any lawsuits and declined to comment when reached. Lopez said she also confided in another trainer, Haddon, during a spring break trip in Florida. In a hotel room, Haddon was treating Lopez with stretches and massages, but the pain Lopez was suffering wouldn't go away. She said, she described to Haddon the procedure Nassar performed. Her face got really bright red, she started to cry, Lopez said. I started to cry because I felt like, are you joking? You feel like this isn't appropriate, so I shouldn't have been doing this entire time? Haddon, Lopez said, told her to talk to Teachner-Hawk, but Lopez put that conversation off. About a week later, Haddon came back with an explanation for Nassar's treatment, using a model of the pelvis to describe that he penetrates her to manipulate a bone. Lopez continued her appointments with Nassar. During her last appointment with Nassar, Lopez said Haddon was there, holding her hand. I'm in tears, I'm shaking, I'm crying, I'm in tears because I don't want to be there, Lopez said. Lopez said she stopped the appointment, hopping off the table and leaving. She said she heard Nassar ask, what's wrong with her? I didn't wait around for an answer, she said, and I never went back to the doctor. That year, in 2000, Lopez said she took her complaint about Nassar to Teachner-Hawk. During a meeting with Teachner-Hawk on the bleachers in Jenison Fieldhouse, the trainer told Lopez that the procedures Nassar performed were medical treatment. I felt like she didn't believe me, Lopez said. She called me crazy. She told me I was crazy for thinking that the treatment that I had been receiving this entire time wasn't, like, actual medical treatment. She said Teachner-Hawk told her that filing a complaint would draw attention to the school and herself and would be a burden on her family, a reference, Lopez said, to her stepmother recently passing away. In that same meeting, Lopez decided to declare herself medically inactive, ending her collegiate softball career. She said she was offered a position to stay with the team. Her athlete profile, which can still be found on the MSU Athletics Department website, says she would be spending her 3rd and 4th years as an undergraduate assistant coach after retiring with an injury. But, instead, Lopez quit school and went home to California. Siding with Nassar, James White, a Nokomis-based attorney who is representing several women in lawsuits against the university, said Nassar was repeatedly believed by people, including employees such as the trainers, over women alleging abuse. This, he said, is inexcusable. Here, there was an immediate deference to the individuals whom the allegations have been made against, White said. I think that's inappropriate and it's reckless. Manley, who represents Lopez, said he is unsatisfied with MSU's response. The message that sends is either that we don't believe you or we don't care, he said. Former MSU volleyball player Jennifer Rude Bedford also has said she informed Haddon in the early 2000s that something felt wrong after her treatment from Nassar. Bedford was among the many women and girls who gave victim impact statements during Nassar's sentencing hearings earlier this year. In court, she recounted how she had feared harming the reputation of a potentially innocent doctor, but ultimately decided back then it was important to report her experience. Former Michigan State volleyball player Jennifer Rude Bedford has said she informed trainer Leanna Haddon in the early 2000s that something felt wrong after her treatment from Larry Nassar. Photo, Matthew Day Smith / Lansing State. She asked Haddon about filing a general complaint. Haddon asked her whether she thought Nassar had done something criminally wrong and whether he hurt her. Bedford says she held back details. "All I wanted to do was say, I'm uncomfortable and to have that heard and recorded with the small hope that I wasn't alone," Bedford said in Ingham County Circuit Court in January. Haddon, she said, wanted to make sure she realized what filing a report could entail. An investigation, making an accusation against Nassar, and stating that I felt that he did something unprofessional or criminally wrong, Bedford said. "I had a hard time saying that with certainty." Bedford did not file a report but instead came up with a strategy to confront the doctor if he ever treated her again and made her uncomfortable. In all, more than 200 girls and women have come forward to report that Nassar abused them during a time frame that spans decades. Nassar will spend the rest of his life in prison. He was sentenced to several decades in state prison, but before that he must complete a 60-year federal prison sentence for possession of child pornography. Lindsay Limca, former MSU gymnast who said she was brutally assaulted by Nassar, questioned why trainers who had been informed about Nassar would be allowed to continue working with athletes. Limca said she had to take a medical disqualification from competing this year because of injuries, but was still working with the team as a student coach. In that position, she regularly saw Tishner Hawk, who is the team's trainer. "If someone's being investigated for knowing about evil assault, you should be suspended," Limca said in an interview with the Free Press. Those aware of complaints against Nassar, Limca said, could have prevented future abuses, including her own, had they spoken up years ago. "I think the main thing that's frustrating," she said, "is the enablers who have not been held accountable." Contact Gina Kaufman, 313-223-4526 or kaufman@freepress.com. Follow her on Twitter, @ReporterGina. Contact the Jogi Yen, 313-222-6678 or jgillen@freepress.com. Follow him on Twitter, @JoeGillen. Lansing State Journal. Reporter Matt Mancarina contributed to this report. Watch. Prosecutor says MSU dean didn't monitor Nassar close. A prosecutor says a Michigan State University official failed to supervise Larry Nassar at a critical time when the sports doctor was facing allegations of UL misconduct in 2014. March 27, AP Reader share this story, https://on.freep.com/